Hi, everybody. Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us today for our Getting Up and Running with Your Autodesk Software webinar. We all at Digital Drafting hope that you are well, safe, and keeping busy during these crazy hard times. Hopefully, it will get better. Before jumping into the webinar, let me go through over a little logistics as usual. So all lines are going to be muted so that you can read correctly. Please send us your questions on the chat box, the question box. We will be more than happy to answer them at the end. Also, the gray boxes that you will see with red borders in the presentation, they are covered because they are sensitive information, okay? So don't scare, that's why. The webcast will be recorded for future viewing, so you don't need to take notes. You can just pay attention, and at the end, you will receive that probably tomorrow. And if you have any questions, you can call us as usual at 305-445-6480, or you can email us at info@ddscad.com, or you can contact the person that you normally deal with. All right, without any more delays, it's my pleasure to introduce Alan Birmaher, our technical specialist and customer success manager. Alan, take it away.
Okay, thank you, Raquel. So today, what we're actually going to be covering is basically what to do after the last webinar that we had last week. Last week's webinar, we covered basically how license assignment works and how you basically give those licenses to the users that are going to be using them. And so today we're actually going to cover the download, installation, activation, and update process for that software. So today, specifically, what we'll cover is actually the best practices that we use here at DDSCAD.com for getting up and running with your new software. And the procedure may vary a little bit from what we covered today, but today we're basically just going with the installation process for AutoCAD 2021 on a Windows 10 PC. And I will also note that the procedure is a little bit different, specifically for Macs. But if you do have a Mac, you need some help on that, there are great resources online for that, as well as you have us as well if you'd like to reach out and ask us any questions, and we can help you with that process as well. So the first thing that I'm going to cover actually is, well, here you go, you'll see what we're going to be covering today: uninstalling, downloading, installing, updating, and activating. And so installing, though not a crucial part of the process, we know it's something that a lot of customers like to do. They like to get rid of the older version before they install the new one, clear up some clutter on the computer. And so I'm going to be just demonstrating some of the tools that are built in here to make that process easier. And so what we're actually going to be using is something called the Autodesk Uninstall tool. And here you can see, if you open your Windows menu, once you've installed some Autodesk software, you should see under an Autodesk folder this Autodesk Uninstall tool. Now, if you go ahead and open that uninstall tool, you'll be greeted with something that looks like this. The more software you have installed, the more you'll see here. But in this case, we just had AutoCAD 21, or AutoCAD 2020, sorry. And so what we'll do is we're gonna go ahead and just click this first checkbox. It'll check everything underneath it, and then we'll go ahead and click uninstall. And after a couple minutes of this proceeding, you'll end up with the program uninstalled. This is a much more simplified and easy solution than going in through the control panel, like some of you may be used to. And it also allows you not only to uninstall the original program itself, but also some of the libraries and other dependencies as well. So we find it to be the most efficient uninstall solution. So next thing we're going to be going ahead and covering is how you actually go ahead and download the software. So there's actually two options, and we're going to go ahead and cover the Autodesk account route first. So for that, what we'll do is we're going to log in at this manage.autodesk.com, same link to get to your Autodesk account from last week. You're going to go ahead and sign in with your email address and your user and your password. And after signing in, you're going to be going ahead and selecting all products and services here on the left side. And once you go in there, you should have a list of all of your products listed that you have licensed to use, basically. Now, when you find the product you'd like, you're going to go ahead and click this View Downloads button on the right side. And we're going to go ahead here You're going to select your version, you're going to select your platform, your language, and then what I like to do here is actually go ahead and click on this View All drop down and select the option that says Browser Download. And once you choose that option, you'll have this Browser Download button here instead of the Install now that it will have shown originally. And basically, there's the couple different methods there. There's Install Now and Download Now, which basically will download and run an installer that will then download everything and then install it. It tends to be, in my opinion, a little bit more cumbersome, and I've seen more trouble come from that. So I actually just prefer to select Browser Download, which will actually help us download all of the installation files ahead of time before we actually do the install. So click Browser Download, and that's pretty much all you do there. Now, there are certain software such as Revit that come as multiple parts. And so I just wanted to demonstrate this to you. If you do have something like that, for example, Revit, you do the browser download, you're going to see a pop-up like this. It'll tell you there's 6 files that need to be downloaded, so please make sure that you're downloading all of them. So if we click Start Download here, you'll see the first download on the bottom left here actually did start, but the pop-up blocker actually caught the other 5. So what we suggest doing is you come up here, you click on that little pop-up blocker window, and you'll actually go through and click on each of these 5 items, and it'll start those downloads as well. Okay, and so basically what we're looking for there is to download all parts of the download. If not, it's not going to work. Okay. So the next option for actually going ahead and downloading is the AVA option. AVA stands for Autodesk Virtual Assistant. And basically the way this works is you're going to go ahead to ava.autodesk.com, as you can see, and you're going to go ahead and select this Download Autodesk Products link here. Okay. Now, once we go in there, we're going to basically see this new chat box. We're going to type in here what product and version we're looking for. In this CAD, AutoCAD 2021. You're going to press enter. You're going to select here, you have an existing license. Then you're going to select multiple computers. And the reason we do that is so that we are right away given the browser download option. Okay. So now we're going to go ahead and continue with AVA. And we're going to see this download button. Again, now this is already the browser download option because we selected multiple computers. And that just makes it easier, as we mentioned before, and a little bit more stable. So again, showing you what a multi-part download looks like. This is for Revit as well. You're going to see all of the parts here. So in this case, 6 parts. And again, you'll just click and get all of those running one at a time. So again, right. So once the actual download process is complete, we're going to go ahead and cover what the installation process looks like. Again, this is on a Windows 10 computer. It might look a little bit different on some other versions and for some other software. But basically what we do here is you're going to go to your downloads section on your Windows Explorer. And you're going to go ahead and look for the first download. So if you had a multiple part download, you're going to have a couple of these different files. You're going to look for the file that ends in 001_006, let's say, if it was a 6-part file. And you're going to do a right click on that first file and then click on this Run as Administrator. Now, when you do that, something to keep in mind is that you're going to see either this pop-up box, if you already have administrative rights on your computer, or you're going to go ahead and see a pop-up box asking you for your administrator credentials. Now, depending on the way your computer is configured or the way that your network is set up, you may need the help of the IT or somebody who has that password in the office to actually help you go ahead and get that done. So here, if you see something like this, you're going to go ahead and click yes, and that's going to show us this little pop-up box. And what this basically means is those files that we downloaded, or the file that we downloaded, are actually a compressed file, something like a zip file. Okay, and so this is going to basically extract that file to this Autodesk folder. So we're going to click OK, and then you're going to go ahead and now see this loading bar. It's going to be extracting. It's going to show you the progress. And once that extraction completes, you're going to actually see a pop-up that looks something like this. And basically what we're going to do here is just go ahead and click install. We're going to go ahead and agree to the terms of service. So accept, next. Then you'll actually be able to see here, various settings, subcomponents that you can add or not add, type of installation. One important one to note that we see a lot of people asking about, by default this should be checked, but Express Tools is actually down here as well. So if you are, somebody who uses Express Tools or does not want to use Express Tools, that's the easy way to select or unselect that option from the very start. So once we do the select, whatever we'd like here, we're going to go ahead and click install. And this installation process is going to run for a little while. Depending on the software, this can take, no time at all or quite a few minutes, depending on the software, depending on how fast your computer is, depending on a variety of factors. But just be patient with it because it does take some time. Okay, so when the installation completes, you'll see something like this. And so the instinct might be to go ahead and click launch now. What I actually like to do, again, is something a little bit different. I actually like to X out of here. Now, sometimes before we move on to updating, you will want to keep in mind that you may see a pop-up asking you to do a reboot or something like that. If you are prompted for something like that, I do recommend going ahead and doing that before you move on in our procedure here. But after that, you'll see if you open your Windows menu that you now have AutoCAD 2021 folder. And what I actually want to do first before we actually launch is go ahead into this Autodesk desktop app that we have here. Now, some of you may be familiar, some of you may not be familiar with the desktop app, but really what the desktop app is going to be your hub for all things Autodesk on the computer. So, meaning for updates, meaning you can look at what new versions may be available here, but primarily we like to use it for the update purpose. So whenever we open this desktop app for the first time, you'll probably be signed out. So you're going to go ahead and sign in with your Autodesk account that's associated with your license so that you don't have to deal with that later. And after signing in, you can actually go ahead and, we see we're signed in now. You'll go ahead and see here any updates that may be pending. Now, if there's no updates pending, this icon on the left, this My Updates icon, won't show up. If you do have updates, it will show up. And it does sometimes take, a couple minutes before that refreshes and you see what's new. So what I like to do here is I usually do 2 or 3 updates at a time. You click on each of these, and basically what will happen is the updates will run, they'll all start to download, and they will run as they become available. And as they run, they'll actually disappear from this list. Now, something to keep in mind is that, running a couple of these at a time, they will only actually install one at a time, even if one is waiting for the next one to finish. So if you see one fail or something like that when you do this, don't worry, just go ahead and click retry. It may have just been because another update was already running, okay? Another thing to note, when these run, you're gonna see the similar message that we saw before. And basically, you're gonna go ahead and just click yes, or insert your administrative Windows information, as we mentioned. And that's going to go ahead and run, and you're going to have to probably do that for each of those updates. And so after those updates finish, again, you're not going to see that My Updates icon. You're now going to see basically the products that you have access to. If you have products assigned to your account, you're going to see those here, newest version, and yeah, that's what you'll see here. Now, one thing I did want to mention, it's not something that I consider a typical practice, but if we have some updates that for some reason are being stubborn, don't want to install, that we're having trouble with, something else you can do, going back to your Autodesk account, is that you'll actually have on the left side here, under all products and services, this product updates button. And when you click on that product updates button, you're going to see a list of all your products updates, basically. So here, for example, I've looked up AutoCAD. So I'm searching for that term for AutoCAD, and I found the most recent updates for AutoCAD. So you'll find the updates that you need to install. You can download them directly from here. And then after downloading them, you can manually run those updates. Again, not a typical practice, but something that is good to know in case you ever do need that. Okay, and so after we've done all of this, the next step is really going to be the activation part of the process. So we're going to go ahead back to our start menu, open up the start menu, open up our AutoCAD folder, and we're going to go ahead and click on that AutoCAD 2021 icon. We'll see our initial startups, same type of thing that most of you are probably used to. And then we're going to get to this let's get started screen. And so there's actually 3 options here, and I'm just going to go through each briefly with you guys here. So the first and most widely used, and something that everybody's pretty much transitioning to at the moment, is this sign in with your Autodesk ID option. Again, this goes back to what we spoke about last week, single user. Licenses are assigned to a user, and so you just go ahead and sign in. There's no need for a serial number or anything like that. So what we do here is we click sign in with your Autodesk ID, and then sometimes you may still get a pop-up message asking you to sign back in. Again, since I already signed in on that Autodesk desktop app, we're not seeing that. And we can actually see up here that I can already see my username, which tells you that you're already signed in. Now, to go ahead and verify that that license is already assigned to you, you're already seeing what you need to be seeing, you can click on this little drop-down arrow next to the question mark on the top right and select About Autodesk AutoCAD 2021 or whatever version you're looking at. And when you click on that, you're going to get this pop-up right here. And if you click Manage License, you'll see here the expiration date, you'll see the Autodesk ID, you'll see the type of license, but you can see that all right here. So you can confirm for yourself that you have the correct license with the correct expiration. Okay. So next thing we're going to look at briefly here is network licenses. So if you come here, you have a multi-user license that's set up in your server in your office. Instead of clicking sign in with your Autodesk ID, you're actually going to go ahead and click use a network license. So after we select that, we're going to be prompted whether we want to specify a server name or specify a license file location. We typically just use the server name approach. You're going to go ahead and put your server name in there, click next, and then theoretically things will just open up for you the same way. Now, it won't look any different from here, but if we go and kind of jump into this same area, we go again to that drop down about Autodesk AutoCAD 2021, manage license, you're going to see something like this. So here you can see it says network license. You have your details, your server, license server name, the serial number, license ID, license expiration date. And one interesting thing you have here as well is the ability to borrow a license. So if you had a laptop that you have in the office, but you're going to be going out into the field, you may want to borrow one of your licenses so that you can take a license with you. Because otherwise you do actually need to be on the office's network to use those licenses. Something to be careful about though, because if you only have a couple licenses that are to be shared between those in the office, if you borrow a license, that license is unavailable for the time that you borrow it. So that's just something to keep in mind. Okay. And yes, again, this little arrow here, fly out, will open up and give you all these details that we're seeing below. Okay, borrow like we discussed. The last thing I'm just going to briefly touch on here is the serial number option. If you do still have serial number licenses for some reason, like I said last week, most of that is being or has already been phased out. But if you do for some reason have those serial number licenses, you're going to select enter a serial number, and then you're going to basically receive a pop-up that has you enter your serial number, sometimes also has you enter a product key. All of that which can be retrieved either through your Autodesk account, or if you need guidance or help with that, you can always get back to us, let us know. And that should be it. Hopefully it'll activate the same way. You can check the license the same way by clicking the little drop down on the top right, about AutoCAD, and then manage license, and you'll see a serial number there if that's the case. And I think that is it. So back to Raquel for questions. Do we have any questions?
Let me see. Thank you, Alan, for the great presentation. Short, brief, and condensed. Okay, so let me see. Any questions, guys? Send it over right now. Okay, I see some of them. Yes. No, for some reason my question box got lost.
Let me see if I can find
Okay,
this.
now, but I have three of them. I have three questions, but I don't know what happened after that. Okay, so the first question is, how many computers can I use my license on? Oh, very good question.
Okay, so as far as this goes, it varies a little bit from license type to license type. Again, the single user licenses, the sign-in licenses that are most typical now, can be installed on up to basically 3 computers. They have to be your computers though. The idea is that this is a license for one person. So let's say you have a computer in the office, one at work, and then one laptop that you take with you. You can be signed in to use the license for all 3 of those computers. They just cannot be used simultaneously, so only one at a time. So, assuming you're going to be in the office or you're going to be home or you're going to be traveling, but you're not going to be doing more than one at the same time. Now, as far as the other license types, if it's a multi-user license, it can pretty much be any number of computers on your network. But again, only using that license one at a time. And the serial number licenses, again, not very common, but would be similar to the single user licenses.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Alan. All right, so the next question is, what is a clean uninstall?
Okay, so clean uninstall is a term that gets thrown around quite a bit. Whenever we're doing uninstalls for customers, or helping out with uninstalls rather, we try to do clean uninstalls. What that really means is basically going through and doing the uninstall of the software like we covered at the beginning of the presentation, and then going through and removing certain supporting files throughout the file system. For more details on that, the best thing to do actually is just to Google Autodesk clean uninstall and the year of your software, and it'll actually give you an outline of what steps to follow, what folders to look at, and what files to delete. This is something sometimes really most useful when you're like having issues with your software and you need to uninstall a prior version or uninstall a current version before doing a reinstall. This gets rid of some of the potentially problematic supporting files.
All right. Okay, thank you so much. What can I install multiple versions of Revit on the same computer? And what about AutoCAD?
Okay, yeah, so you can, again, depending on your license type, but with the subscriptions, you technically have access to the current version and 3 versions prior. So, if you had a license of AutoCAD subscription right now, you could have 2018, 2019, 2020, and 21 installed on your computer. Revit would be the same. With Revit, there's more reason for that, as you guys may know, because Revit is version specific. So if you're working in a Revit 18 file, and then you go open it in Revit 19, make your edits, and then somebody back with Revit 18 tries to open it again, you may have some trouble there. So with Revit, it makes more sense to have multiple versions. With AutoCAD, since you can open, older files with the newer versions and you can always save down, there may be less of a point to that. With AutoCAD, I usually recommend just staying on the newer software and getting rid of the older stuff. But with Revit, definitely very useful to have multiple versions, and that's not a problem at all.
All right. Okay, so next question is, if someone borrows a license, how do they give it back?
Okay, so there's a couple different ways. The easiest way is, you take your borrowed license with your computer, you come back to the office a couple days later, and you go ahead and reconnect to the network, go back to that manage licenses view that we looked at, and instead of where we saw it borrow, you can actually click return. So that's the easiest way. If you set a time, so for example, when you go borrow, you can actually borrow up to a certain date. And if that date comes and goes, that borrowed license will be automatically returned. So those are basically your two options, because when you're borrowing a license, you're always setting a date by which you'll be returning. So if you don't return by that date, that license goes away. And if you get back before that date and you want to return the license, you just go ahead and do it manually.
All right. Okay, thank you. Next one is, what happens if you have a desktop and a laptop and would be signed on in the desktop and accidentally you leave it on? Then try to use Revit on the laptop. Will it just not work or say something, the license is not available?
So I'm going to say that I've seen mixed situations on this, but supposedly from what I've seen recently, if you try to open a second instance, it'll tell you that the license is in use or something like that. Like I said, I've seen a couple of different ways that it plays out, but usually there is some sort of message that lets you know that the license is being used elsewhere. Whether or not you can kick the other session out, I do not recall at this time, but I can definitely do a little digging on that. But I know as of recently, at least for the last couple months, I've definitely seen more instances of some sort of message popping up letting you know that that the license is in use elsewhere.
But if they say if the license is in use elsewhere, can you just say, do you remember having an option to say, okay, I want to log in here, log out there? No.
I'm trying to recall, and I know there was an option, but I can't remember if it's to kick out the other one or to. I think you can kick the other one out. I would have to look into it a little bit more to be
That would
100%.
be awesome if you can research it. So the person that asked us, Joseph, we will get back to you in writing when he research more. And if anybody else has the question, then email us. We'll be more than happy to let you know.
Absolutely.
All right. So I don't see any more questions unless you guys wanna ask us a last minute question. But that's all, Alan. I don't have any more questions. Thank you, so everybody. Thank you for attending today. I wanted to recap that our blog, again, we have said it along all our webinars before. Our blog has been live. You can check out a lot of content that might help you with your workflows on our blog link, which is on the screen. If you have a question about a new secondary administrator support, let us know. Ask us. A new secondary administrator support option. That's something that if you're interested, you can ask us. Our upcoming webinar is Introduction to BIM 360 Design for Civil 3D. That will be on August 26th and on October 6th at 1 p.m. So if you're not interested, but you know anybody that is on that field and we will be interested, just feel free to invite them over. For any other events that we'll be having in the future, you can go to our website, click on events, and they will be listed there. And if you have any other questions, please email us or call us, and it will be our pleasure to assist you. Thank you, everybody, for your afternoon time. Thank you, Alan, for a great presentation. Good afternoon, everybody.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.